So, Patek Philippe, last year, the Cubitus collection, it really, I don't know about you, but it certainly got people talking, with that whole sporty chic thing, what that even means for a brand like Patek, right?
Yeah, I think you're right. It did feel like a bit of a departure for them,
Mm.
like they were kind of pushing the boundaries a little bit. And it definitely got people thinking, like, okay, so what is sporty chic when we're talking about, the upper echelon of watchmaking?
Well, get ready to think about it even more because today we are diving deep into the newest addition to the Cubitus family, the mid-size 40 millimeter Cubitus 7128. And now we've got options white gold, rose gold, a far cry from where this collection started, wouldn't you say?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, remember those first releases, the 5821 and the 5822P, 45 millimeters, big, bold, steel mostly, or that two-tone steel and gold. So yeah, 40 millimeters, solid gold cases, that's a statement.
Totally. And that's exactly what we're going to unpack today. We're going to look at what's changed, what's stayed the same, and really what makes this new Cubitus 7128 tick. So, shall we start with the case? It seems like a logical place to begin.
Yeah, the case is where I think you see some of the most obvious changes. Right off the bat, you've got these two new options in terms of materials. You've got 18 karat white gold, that's the reference 71281G, and then you've got the 18 karat rose gold, which is the 71281R. And both of them are coming in at that new smaller size, the 40 millimeters across. That's measured, by the way, from the 10 o'clock position to the 4 o'clock position. And it's pretty slim, too, just 8.5 millimeters thick.
Right, so definitely a more wearable size for a lot of people, I'd imagine. And of course, we can't forget that 30-meter water resistance. Now, obviously, this isn't a dive watch, but it gives you a bit of peace of mind for everyday wear and tear. And the way the case is constructed, it's pretty unique, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a little different. So they've gone with a two-part construction. The back of the case and the case band, those are all one piece, and then the bezel is separate. And what's interesting is that the movement is actually cased up from the front, which is not, your typical approach.
Right, it's not what you usually see. Now, in terms of the overall look, it's still very much a cubitus. You've got that square shape with the rounded edges, and those side elements, they really give it that distinctive character, don't they?
Yeah, they definitely add something special. And the way they've played with the finishing, it's quite nice. You've got a mix of polished and satin finished surfaces, which gives it a little bit of a sporty feel, but also quite a refined look.
Exactly. You see that satin brushing on most of the case, which I think leans into that sporty aesthetic. But then you've got the polished bevels, the polished edges. It adds a touch of, elegance and sophistication. And then you've got those little details like the crown. It's tucked in really nicely, keeps everything nice and streamlined. And of course, you can't forget the sapphire crystal case back. Got to be able to see that movement.
Right, got to appreciate the mechanics. And speaking of which, let's move on to the dial, because this is another area where I think they've made some interesting choices with these new 40 millimeter models.
Totally. So we've got two new dial colors here. For the white gold version, we've got a really beautiful blue-gray. And then for the rose gold model, they've gone with a warm brown. Both really lovely, I think.
Yeah, I agree. And they're new for this size.
Yeah.
They really complement the different case materials well. And the overall dial design, it's still very much Cubitus. You've got that sunburst finish, which is always nice. And then those embossed horizontal lines, they really give the dial some depth and texture.
Yeah, I like those lines. And then for the hour markers and the hands, they've stuck with that baton style, which I think works really well. And of course, they match the case material. So you've got white gold or rose gold, depending on the model. And they've got that nice luminescent coating so you can actually see the time in the dark.
Right, got to have a little bit of practicality, even in a dressy watch. And then you've got the date window at 3 o'clock, same as the previous models.
Yeah.
White date disc, black numerals. Very classic, very clean.
Okay, so we've talked about the case, the dial. Now let's get to the heart of it all, the movement.
So inside the Cubitus 7128, we have the Patek Philippe Calibre 26330SC. Now this is a self-winding movement. And it's actually the same movement that's used in the 45 millimeter Cubitus models. So it's tried and tested, very reliable. It's got a central rotor made of 21 karat gold.
Okay, and for those of us who aren't watchmakers, what does that actually mean?
Well, the rotor is the part that spins around as you move your wrist, and that's what winds the watch. And using gold for the rotor, it adds a bit of weight, which makes the winding more efficient. And it just feels, luxurious.
Right, makes sense. So how fast does this movement tick?
It's running at 28,800 vibrations per hour. It's pretty standard for a modern mechanical movement. Gives you that nice, smooth sweep of the seconds hand.
Okay. And what about the power reserve? How long will it run if you're not wearing it?
So the power reserve is about 45 hours, plenty for a couple of days off the wrist. And, it's not just about how long it runs. This movement is really nicely finished. You've got the Gyromax balance, the Sparmax hairspring, all those little details that Patek is known for.
And again, for those of us who aren't, deep in the watch world, could you break down what those things mean?
Sure. The Gyromax balance, it's basically a way of regulating the watch very precisely. And the Sparmax hairspring, it's made from this special material called Silinvar, which is really resistant to things like temperature changes and magnetism. So it keeps the watch running accurately over time.
So it's all about precision and stability, even at that tiny scale.
Exactly. And one more little detail about the movement.
Yeah.
It is a hacking seconds function, which means when you pull out the crown to set the time, the seconds hand stops. So you can set the time really accurately.
Nice. Okay, so moving on to the bracelet. Obviously, with the Cubitus, the bracelet is a big part of the design. It's integrated into the case, right?
Yeah, the bracelet is definitely a key part of the overall aesthetic. And with these new gold models, they've gone with, well, you guessed it, 18-karat white gold or rose gold bracelets to match the cases.
Yeah.
And the finishing on the bracelet is really nice. You've got that vertical satin brushing on the main links, which gives it that sporty feel. But then the central links are polished, which adds a touch of elegance.
Right, so it's that balance again. Sporty and elegant. And it looks like they've included some practical features as well.
Yeah, so the bracelet has a comfort extension built into the clasp. So you can adjust the size a little bit on the fly, if your wrist swells up in the heat or whatever. And the clasp itself is a fold-over clasp with 4 independent catches. So it's very secure.
So you get that nice, comfortable fit, but you also know it's not going to accidentally come undone. Now, one thing that I noticed in the press release is that they specifically mention that there's no quick change system for the straps. So it seems like you're pretty much committed to wearing it on the bracelet.
Yeah, that's right. It
Yeah.
seems like they really wanted to keep that integrated look. And, with a watch like this, the bracelet is such a big part of the design. I can understand why they made that choice.
Okay, so we've gone through the case, the dial, the movement, the bracelet. I think it's time to take a step back and talk about the bigger picture here. What would you say are the most significant differences between this new 40mm Cubitus and the original 45mm models?
Well, I think the most obvious changes are, of course, the size, going down to 40 millimeters,
Yeah.
and then the materials, having these solid gold options, and then, of course, the new dial colors, the blue, gray, and the brown.
Right. And that smaller size, I think, is a pretty big deal. It makes the watch more wearable for more people. And it kind of opens up the Cubitus to a wider audience, I think.
Yeah, I think you're right. I mean, the 45 millimeter models were definitely statement pieces, but this 40 millimeter size, it's a little more understated, a little more classic, maybe.
Yeah, and I think it's interesting that they decided to introduce these new materials and dial colors with the smaller size. It's almost like they're trying to, redefine what the Cubitus can be.
Yeah, it's like they're exploring different facets of that sporty chic concept. And, one thing that hasn't changed is the quality. I mean, the finishing on the case is incredible. And the movement, well, it's a Patek Philippe movement. You're getting something special.
Exactly. They haven't compromised on quality at all. Now, of course, we have to talk about the price, because these watches are not cheap. We're looking at 76,000 euros for both the white gold and the rose gold versions.
Yeah, that's definitely a significant investment. But, you are getting a lot for your money. The materials are top-notch. The craftsmanship is incredible. And, of course, there's the prestige that comes with owning a Patek Philippe.
Right. It's not just a watch. It's a statement. So, to sum it all up, we have a new Patek Philippe Cubitus. Smaller, more refined, more wearable, but still with that sporty chic DNA.
Exactly. It's an evolution of the original concept, but I think it's a really successful one.
Well, that brings us to the end of our deep dive into the new Patek Philippe Cubitus 7128. And I think it's safe to say that this is a watch that has a lot to offer. It's beautiful, it's well-made, and it's definitely got people talking.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how this new model is received and how it fits into the larger Cubitus collection over time.
Definitely. And I think it also raises some interesting questions about the future of watch design. Are we going to see more brands embracing this kind of smaller, more refined aesthetic? Is sporty chic evolving? It's something to think about.
Yeah, it's a good point. I think the Cubitus is definitely a watch that's pushing boundaries and making people rethink their assumptions.
Well, if you want to see more of the Cubitus 7128, you can always head over to the Patek Philippe website. They've got some great photos and all the technical details. And until next time, keep exploring the fascinating world of watches.